Okay, here we go. Today is a special treat. You'll get to see some of my amazing artwork array. Okay, so I'm going to start us off with a brief introduction to the early history of Western drama. Here we are. In the West, drama basically got started with the ancient Greeks. And they had two main kinds of plays. The earlier group are the tragedies. Later on came comedies. So we're going to be talking today about ancient Greek theater with one of its primary examples, Antigone. Please. Here are two words that can sometimes be confusing. Theater, spelled this way, is the building where the plays are performed on stage. We have movie theaters, obviously, too. So that's theater with an ER. If it's spelled with an RE, however, it's talking about the art and practice of performing plays and writing them. So, just a word to the wise, that'll be on the exam. You should know the difference. Okay. Here is, it's kind of in ruins, but this is what a Greek amphitheater looked like. The play would be put on here on this stage. These are the seats, of course. And part of what is destroyed here is the kind of backstage area where people would change their costumes or, other technical things. These were really built by smart people who understood acoustics. They say, I haven't been to Greece myself, but the way the amphitheaters were built was largely to be able to create a place where the dialogue could be heard from anywhere in this theater. So even if people are speaking quietly, they would still be heard. And that's pretty special, considering how long ago this was. This particular amphitheater might still be in use, I don't know. They might use microphones now, but of course they didn't have them back then. All right. In the ancient Greek plays, actors did not wear makeup on stage. Instead, they wore masks. And these masks were called personas. Oh, I guess it's just an underline. Here I can show you a few. This is just a Google image search, so some of the pictures may not be perfect. But we've got some that are authentic. Some of them are rather different. Here, for example, is one. Those must have been awful heavy to wear on your face, you know? Here's some more. One thing, excuse me. One thing about the practice of using masks instead of makeup is that, you know, these masks are, you know, carved out of stone. It took a long time, and they didn't like have lots of extra masks floating around. So one result is that we get the same mask used for drama after drama. So this had an impact on the way that the playwrights wrote the plays, because you needed to create a character who would suit one of the masks that the performers were going to use. So we developed kind of stock characters who are used for many different plays. So you couldn't really easily just do a very original, different character because they didn't have that mask. Here's another one. As you can see, they had eye holes and mouth holes. This particular image, or similar, is often used. Excuse me. Often used in a pairing of one sad-looking mask and one happy-looking mask together, representing the idea of theater with an R-E. So there's that. It's still used nowadays. As you can see, some of these are like modernized, and they don't use stone to make them. Oh, actually, that was kind of neat. In some cases, it just leaves the entire mouth area open. Probably makes it easier to make yourself heard. Okay. Yeah, you can see here representing theater in general. We have the combination of the sad and happy masks. I guess this is the inside of a mask. Okay, you get the idea. This is the kind of classic form of the image of theater. Okay. Another thing about ancient Greek theaters, which continued, this tradition continued for a very long time. There were only male actors. For female characters, they wouldn't use a woman. They would instead use a boy to represent the female characters because their voices were higher. Sexist, yes, of course. Okay, so let's take another look here. No, that's just a vocabulary term. Okay, so as I said, there are two kinds of Greek dramas. The older one was tragedy, and then later comedy appeared. A tragedy is essentially what we would call a sad story. And the main characters were usually heroes and royalty, people like that. There may be Greek gods as an element of the story, but they don't appear on the stage as gods. we have to wait to comedy to get there. But here are the functions of Greek tragedy. The first of these functions is to teach the audience moral lessons. Usually the story would feature a character, usually a hero, who would break the rules or disobey the orders of a god. And for this reason, they're punished and lose everything. So usually the endings of these tragedies are like super sad. Which leads to our next topic, catharsis. This is a word we'll definitely see again on the exam. Catharsis. Instead of defining it immediately, I'll read what I wrote here years ago. The audience went to a Greek tragedy expecting to see a sad story about a hero that they already loved. And see, these stories are like ancient stories, and people took the original word-of-mouth stories and wrote them down as plays so that they could appear, lifelike right in front of them instead of just hearing about them. And so they already knew the basic stories before they went. They knew the characters already too. So the audience wanted to see these tragedies and see the hero lose everything and pity them, feel sorry for him, basically have a really good cry at the end. I'm not sure how many people in this class might cry, but that was the idea. A catharsis is the purging of negative feelings from your body through a good cry. And they kind of get cleansed in their, in their mentality in the process. Good. Tragic heroes. These are the characters who are usually the central figure in the story, and they're almost perfect people. They have many good qualities about them. Usually they're kings, but they usually have one minor personality, such as pride, laziness, greed, uncontrollable anger, intolerance, and things like this. These small problems, called tragic flaws or hamartia, would usually bring them and their friends, their family, and their kingdoms into disaster and death. Doesn't seem like a lot of fun, but they became culturally significant to the Greeks. And the Greek influence of drama spread, across Europe and such. Here's an example of a Greek tragic hero, Achilles. There's a common phrase in English, someone's Achilles heel. Here's what that's talking about. I don't love this picture, but it's here. Right, I'm just reading through for a second. No, don't translate. It's already in English, okay. Achilles, I'll just read a bit, was the son of Thetis and Peleus, the bravest hero in the Trojan War according to Greek mythology. Now when Achilles was born, his mother Thetis tried to make him immortal by dipping him in the river Styx. I don't have the time to go into, deep into the Greek mythology, but the river Styx was basically a river through hell. And this would-be clever woman made a mistake. She was dipping the baby into the river Styx, but she was holding him by one heel and forgot to dip him a second time, so the heel she held could get wet too. Therefore, the place where she held him remained untouched by the magic water of the Styx, and that part stayed mortal and vulnerable. To this day, any weak point is called an Achilles heel. Oh, that's interesting. So here's a picture of Thetis dipping baby Achilles into the river, holding him by his heel. That's rather interesting. Okay, so in this case we have this almost perfect hero, very brave, very valiant, a good fighter and everything, but he had one weak place, his heel. And as you might guess, the way he died was by getting injured in his heel, the one part of his body that was not immortal. And so that's the reason he died. Sophocles wrote, a bunch of plays. Two of the most famous are Oedipus Rex, which means Oedipus the king, Rex means king. And the example that I prefer is Antigone, which we're going to talk about today. When I was a young literature student, I saw her name and I pronounced it in my head as Antigone, which admittedly it does look like that. But no, it's pronounced Antigone. Here's a very brief description of the story. Antigone, it's complicated, oh gosh. Luckily, I've got this chart down here. But Antigone was one of the daughters of Oedipus Rex. Oedipus Rex was the first play, and then Antigone is a continuation of that story. So after Oedipus died, and it was really a messed up story, Antigone was one of the daughters of Oedipus. Ismene is her sister. After Oedipus died, his two sons both wanted to be the new king of Thebes, the city, and they went to war. One of them stayed in town and built up his army from the people living in Crete. The other brother went outside and recruited people to form an opposing army, and they were there fighting each other in the city. Finally, it came down to the two brothers facing themselves directly and fighting. One of them died, one of them lived. No, wait, I said that wrong. They both died. Sorry, they killed each other, which already is an unhappy situation, obviously. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm just reviewing the story in my mind to make sure whether I described this accurately. Anyhow, Antigone and Ismene, the two sisters who were also the kids of Oedipus, had different feelings about what to do with the brother who was slain. Creon, Antigone and Ismene's uncle, became the king. And he is the tragic kind of anti-hero in this. He is very stubborn and very much a self-important man. And his policy was, he makes the rules. He is the one that everyone must obey. One of the rules that he made was that his brother who killed in the Theban War, his brother that was killed was to be left in the street unburied, so the dogs and other animals would eat his body. And of course, Creon would be the king. Creon sounds like a strange name. I know it's not my idea, but that's his name traditionally. Now, in this story, as it begins, Creon is a recently crowned king of Crete. And did I say Thebes before? I'm sorry. He was the new king, and he wanted to establish his command as law for all in the city. He had very low tolerance for anyone who did not obey him. And unfortunately for him, his niece Antigone she had different priorities. She was the one who decided that the gods are the ones who make the ultimate laws. And she feels she needs to obey the gods, which unfortunately resulted in her breaking her uncle's law. She wanted to bury her brother and let him have, a decent burial with dignity, because the gods said, you need to take care of your family. But Creon was not happy about this and was very stubborn. Finally, because Creon was too proud, he lost all the love of the people and all his family and his kingdom. Antigone tries to obey the gods, but Creon does not. Here's a little chart for us. There are those names. Okay, good. Right. So we come into the story around here. Here's Oedipus, who is the king. The story of Oedipus is really famous, and it's really messed up, and and kind of embarrassing. Anyway, he had 4 kids: Eteocles, Polynices, Ismene, and Antigone. Right. Creon became the king after Oedipus. Yeah, I think I did tell that a little wrong. I'm sorry. Anyway, Creon is here, married to Queen Eurydice, and they had actually 2 kids of their own, Haman and Megaris, who features in, just a second, yeah, I know who it is. Hercules, that's it, yeah. Otherwise known in Greek as Heracles. Okay, so this is, handy reference. Okay, we've got the idea of catharsis all taken care of. I told this one too. Generally speaking, most of the moral lessons that we learn as we watch these tragedies, which were more than entertainment, they were educational too, and of course traditional. But the essential moral lesson is to obey the gods over the kings. Okay, so that's an introduction to Greek tragedy. Now let me mention comedies too. As you would guess, the comedies are funny, and they have happy endings, and they usually end with marriages, with a lot of misunderstandings. Often one of the gods would appear on stage as a character, which doesn't happen in tragedies. Comedies usually tease or criticize and make fun of society and its strange or bad people, such as this list here: proud, selfish, rich, vain, greedy people, people who like to think they're smart. One common thing which is treated as a comic situation are old men marrying young women. And in the plays, they generally consider the old men to be very foolish, and they assume that the young women will not be faithful to their husbands, and they consider that's funny. How do you get your head around that? I don't know. And foolish people in general. One reason that these types just listed were so common in Greek comedy is because of the masks. As I mentioned before, they could reuse the same mask whenever they had the same type of character. Right. In comedies, the main characters usually are clever, poor people, innocent young women, farmers, regular people, and the bad guy characters mentioned above, not rich kings. Gods are often characters in the plays, teasing people and giving them trouble, but we do see them punishing people who disobey them. They also often will feature great heroes in less dignified situations. The kind of the king of Greek comedies is Aristophanes, and he wrote pieces like The Frogs, The Birds, The Clouds, Lysistrata. Lysistrata, yes. Okay. I made these notes when I had a drama textbook for students to read. Of course, you don't have that. I don't even know if I still have that. I'm not sure. But the bad guy characters are ridiculous figures such as a miser. A miser is a selfish, greedy person who tries to stop the flow of happiness or the well-being of others. Usually the bad guy characters are rigid of mind and spirit. Often they can be traditional and inflexible, more old-fashioned. Here are some more bad guy types: hypocrites, fools, misers, braggarts, hypochondriacs, gluttons, bullies, and such. And the good guys, on the other hand, are the people who remove the obstacles to happiness and well-being. Oh, and the editors of this textbook I'm mentioning remind us that at the end of the comedy, the bad guys are usually reconciled with the good guys, and the bad guys stop acting badly. Which continued for a long time too. If you think of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, we see just that. All right, some comedy techniques. One of my favorite things is wordplay, such as puns and malapropisms and just jokes. Funny activities such as using disguises, mistaken identities, obsessions, and physical comedy such as falling down and so forth. Okay, I'm going to move past this. Oh, and I just go to malapropisms. Oh, this is a handy, useful word which is still in operation nowadays, the scapegoat. This is someone or something that gets the blame and punishment for something that is done wrong, instead of the actual, real, perpetrator, in order to protect the actual bad guy. And this is it's a phrase that's used in English very often, even today. Okay, good. Next, let me see how I'm doing. It's almost 9. I can get started, but we're going to have to finish after the break because I've got just 3 minutes left in this hour. All right, this will list the elements of a dramatic script. So, script is the G button, okay? The person who writes a play is a playwright or dramatist. They don't call that person an author. So it's good to know these words. All right, well, we got 2 minutes left. The script is the book that contains the playwright's play, including all or at least many of the following, and also, the contents of the book. And so here are some of the things featured in a script. Pardon me. Okay. The dialogue refers to the lines that the characters speak on stage, and all the words. The words that the characters speak out loud are called lines or dialogue. In each line of a play, it's introduced at the beginning of the line with what we call a prefix before every line of dialogue. And I have a link. Let's take a look. This is pretty good. I'll make it a little bigger. Okay. This is from William Shakespeare's The Tempest. A pretty good example of how this is done. They'll introduce the characters, a shipmaster and a bosun. Oh! The bell is early. Okay, we'll finish this up after the break. Let's take a little break. There you are. Great, you're welcome. Hi. Yes, okay, good. 51. 51 Kevin. Gotcha. How many? 23. Yeah, there you are. 53. Good, welcome back. Okay. Who are you?
I'm Celeste.
Oh, you're Celeste. Okay. Celeste is 3 as I remember. Okay, so this is next thing. Okay, thank you. What's your number? 20. Gotcha. Sure. Hi. Let me guess. What's it? Tammy. Okay, good. I've got you. You're welcome. Before we continue with Greek theater, let me just run through the remaining names that I still have an O for. And I'm going to start with Sophie. Okay, let's move to the next. Toby. Okay. Takes a little while. Michelle. Okay. Want to be complete. Brittany. No. Anne. Dennis. Aurelia. Let's see, who's the next one? Elaine. Yeah, you're here. Sorry. Okay. Kent. Morris. Okay. Iris. Janice. All these is names. We've got William. Brian. Mark. Naomi. Okay. Ruby. Betty. Sapphire. It's too bad these names are so much fun to say. How about Julian? And Lucas. Okay, and that's everybody. All right, let's move on. We were talking about the elements of a script. One of the things is the character name, which appears before every new speech, performed by the actors. Each character's line is separately listed. Now, these prefixes take different forms. Sometimes they spell the name out completely, such as these two famous names, Romeo and Juliet. Sometimes to save space, because you know, this is at a period where it's expensive to print books, and they wanted to save as much paper as possible, so they wanted to save space. They would abbreviate the names, such as is highlighted here, and that is why it's called a prefix. Sometimes, if they were really running out of space on the page and they were short lines, they would even write it on one line like this. And, you know, I could show you examples, but it's not really worth it. Here's a good example from The Tempest. I was just reading scene 1, act 1 of The Tempest. So at first we have two characters, a shipmaster and a bosun. You can ask me why we pronounce this bosun, but I can't tell you the answer because I don't know. But that's the way they say it, bosun. So here we have the prefixes. The shipmaster is abbreviated as just mast, and the bosun is abbreviated to just boats. We have other characters who come in, as we see here. They're listed fully in the stage directions. But as you can see, as you look through these lines here, they're all, the speeches are all introduced with prefixes. Okay, what do we have? So what else we got? There it's coming up. Good. All right. Seems to me we've talked about these a little bit, so I'm not going to spend too much time on these. Stage directions are the playwright's instructions to the actors and the technical people that say what should be done on stage. These include physical actions such as, walking, standing up, etc. And also things like sound effects. And as a matter of fact, in the play we were looking at, here we have this. A tempestuous noise of thunder and lightning heard. So that's another kind of stage direction, the sound effects. Here's something that's good to keep in mind and to be aware of. Stage directions are always written in the present tense. It's not like a novel where most novels are narrated in the past tense. So stage directions are present tense. Okay, good. Good to know. We also have parentheticals describing the way the actors should deliver the lines. They're basically acting directions. These highlighted in a kind of fuchsia color are literal parentheses. And that is where the word parentheticals comes from. Let me take a quick look and see if I can find any examples. Just on this page, I don't think there are any. Shakespeare was not big on these because it's before his time, or actually after his time. But they appear in this example which we've seen. I put the parentheticals in purple and the stage directions in blue. The prefix is in green. The dialogue is in orange. So we have all of these in a real, taken directly from a real play. H.I.G. in this case is short for the name of the character Henry Higgins. The parenthetical explains that he is supposed to say his words impatiently. Then we have his dialogue. Now, actually, inside these brackets, we have a combination of stage direction and parenthetical. First, he controls himself. So he's got to act as if he's come down. And then a stage direction, he sits down again. So we've got all of these things in one little tiny example, which I was happy to find. I think we've covered most of these, but let me just go through them briefly and then get going with Antigone on. The scene, well, actually, as a matter of fact, it does appear, doesn't it? I thought it did. Well, it provides a setting on a ship at sea. It doesn't take a lot of words in this example from Shakespeare. The scene would describe the set, the arrangements of things on the stage. The setting, it's easy to get these words confused, so just be, aware. Would include things like the time, the place, the situation, the socio-economical idea of, the characters, whose house this is or what street this is or whatever. The set itself are the furniture, the walls, and other things put on stage by the techies. Dramatis personae, I have one right here. Boom. Dramatis personae, just exactly like I said. And in earlier English plays, these would include the characters' names plus some brief description of their personality or their relationship with other characters, as we see here. Alonso is the king of Naples. Sebastian is his brother. Prospero is the right Duke of Milan. Antonio is his brother, the usurping Duke of Milan. Then we have Ferdinand, son to the king of Naples, etc., etc. We've got different characters. So that's what a dramatis personae looks like. In later examples, such as Tennessee Williams, we got a much more detailed version of the dramatis personae and the set description where they describe the set. Oh, that's a pity. Let me try this for a second. If this can be fixed quickly, that would be really nice. Oh, baby, look at this. That's exactly what I needed. All right, good. This here is a 20th century play, The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. It came out in 1944, and it gives us a very detailed description of what the set looks like, the socio-economical situation, a lot of like musing by the playwright. Describes the different rooms, and detailed descriptions of what the characters are like, what their personality is like, what they look like. All of this, gradually developed from Shakespeare's time. Okay, I know I've done this before, so I'm going to move faster. Dramatis personae means the persons of the drama with some description of them. The props are the gauji, the stuff that the characters would actually handle or carry during the drama. Costumes include the clothing and such that the characters wear. Often in movies they call this wardrobe instead of costumes, but it's the same thing. The makeup needs no description. The narrator is the person who speaks directly to the reader. This doesn't always happen in a play, but sometimes it does, such as Tom. I closed it again. Darn Chinese system, can't read it. But in The Glass Menagerie, the narrator is Tom, and so he actually in that play alternates between being a character in the play, taking part in the things going on, and he also comes to the side and starts to talk about the situation he was in at that time in his life. It's a challenging part. Now here's my gorgeous little diagram of a stage. Let's imagine that the audience sits out here in the house. There are footlights which will shine up on stage. This is the front of the stage. It's called downstage. Moving towards the back of the room, we've got center stage, which is right in the middle, and upstage, which is the far wall of the stage. Now, why is it called upstage, center stage, and downstage? It's very simple. The original stages were not flat, they were at an angle. Therefore, downstage was originally physically lower than upstage. That's a good enough explanation for that. When we consider right and left in a play, we're talking about stage right and stage left. That would be, for example, if I'm doing a play right now, I'm on stage, you are the audience, this would be stage left, and this would be stage right. So it's from the point of view of the actors facing the audience. And I put a couple of set things, including this couch, some walls, and so forth. Yeah, I covered everything. That's good. Now, full-length scripts are usually divided into acts. Most commonly, the acts are 2 or 3 or 5 acts. Shakespeare's plays have 5 acts. Modern plays usually have 2 or maybe 3. I've done 2 and I've done 3. I've never tried 5. And so they would have different conventions for how to write the individual things. So we get the acts, which are big sections of the play, and then within one act there are several scenes. So they would do something like this, where the capital Roman numeral 1 is written here for act, and then the Arabic number 1 is used to indicate which scene within Act 1. Sometimes it's really written out this thoroughly as this. It's not hard to understand. It's pretty simple. You should already be aware of the word exposition, but just as a reminder, the exposition is the process in which the author or playwright lets the reader and viewer know about the background story, background information about the characters and their situation, often called the backstory. And so it prepares the audience to be able to situate the character in his or her, the situation in their life. Another word which is commonly used is a flashback. Usually a brief scene in which we see something that happened to the characters earlier on than the now of the story. One great example is Death of a Salesman, which I'd love to share with you this semester. This is just an example of how parentheticals can influence the dialogue. If the playwright did not include these parentheticals, it would be up to the director or the actor to decide on their own how they would like their actors to perform the dialogue. But these three examples here, the dialogue is exactly the same, but the parentheticals are different. So let me just read these for you for just a second. We have two characters, Bill and Betsy. I don't know why, but I've always liked the name Betsy. Bill says, "I'm not going to the party with you, Betsy. I just don't like your parents." And Betsy, understandingly, says, "That's fine." Compare this. "I'm not going to the party with you, Betsy. I just don't like your parents." That's fine. A third example. "I'm not going to the party with you, Betsy. I just don't like your parents." That's fine. So you see how the playwright can influence the acting on the stage. Of course, the director makes the final decision, but this will give at least the director and the actors would give them some guidance as to what the playwright had in mind when they were writing the play. And that's that whole document. Okay, good. Let's spend the rest of this almost half hour experiencing, hopefully with captions. Yeah, baby. Antigone. This is a particular performance from 1986. And it's pretty well done. This poster on the wall represents King Creon, the new rule. As a matter of fact, there it is. Which show the new King Creon. Here's a little background note to the story, so we as readers of the script will be aware. This has been provided not by the playwright himself, but by the translator. Of course, this is not originally written in English, so it must be translated. Okay, here's the background story, background to the story. When Oedipus, the king of Thebes, discovered through his own investigations that he had killed his father and married his mother Jocasta, he put out his own eyes and Jocasta killed herself. Yes, that's a messed up sentence, I know. Once Oedipus ceased being king of Thebes, his two sons, Polynices and Eteocles, agreed to alternate as king. But when Eteocles refused to give up power to Polynices, the latter, Polynices, collected a foreign army of Argives and attacked the city. In the ensuing battle, the Thebans triumphed over the invading forces, and the two brothers killed each other, with Eteocles defending the city and Polynices attacking him. The action of the play begins immediately after the battle. So King Creon is the brand new king. Creon is a brother to Jocasta, and thus an uncle of Antigone, Ismene, Eteocles, and Polynices. Right. Here we have the dramatis personae, and it's actually directly written into the script, so that's really nice. Here are the characters. Antigone is the daughter of Oedipus. Ismene is the other daughter of Oedipus, the sister of Antigone. Creon is the new king of Thebes. Eurydice is the wife of Creon. Haemon is the son of Creon and Eurydice, engaged to Antigone. We got a really important character here, Tiresias, who is an old blind prophet. And Tiresias is a prophet who will be able to talk about the future of what's going to happen. He's the voice of reason. He's the voice representing what the God's will is regarding what's going on in the story. Played here by John Gielgud, which is really cool. Then we have a boy who is guiding Tiresias because Tiresias is blind, and a few other characters. Oh, big thing. And handled in this particular production pretty well. We've got what we call the Greek chorus. The chorus is a group of people who would stand together, and together they would speak about what's going on in the story, usually giving some commentary. Sometimes there would be some disagreements among factions of the townspeople. In this play, the Theban elders, the old men, who are kind of like high class in Thebes society, are the chorus, and so you're going to hear them speaking together. Right. Okay. Now we've got enough basic background. We can show you about 22 minutes of this. This is Creon.
his destiny, is our punishment too, the sentence passed on all his children. Physical pain, contempt, insults, every kind of dishonor. We've seen them all and endured them all, the two of us. And there's more to come. Now, today, have you heard it? This new proclamation which the king has made to the whole city. Have you heard how those nearest to us are to be treated? With a contempt that we reserve for traitors, people we love.
Nobody has told me anything, Antigone. I've heard nothing, neither good nor bad, about anyone we love. Not since the battle, I mean. The terrible news that both our brothers were dead. One day, one battle and fratricide twice over. Each brother cutting down his own flesh. But the army from Argos retreated last night. I have heard that. Nothing else to cheer me up or depress me further.
I thought you hadn't. That's why I asked you to meet me here, where I can tell you everything without any risk of being overheard.
You guys be quiet.
What is it then? More terrible news. Something black and frightening, I can see that.
Well, what do you think is maybe? Perhaps you can guess. We have two brothers, both of them dead. And Creon has decreed that a decent burial shall be given to one, but not to the other. Eteocles apparently has already been buried with full military honours, not far short of a state funeral, with all the formalities due to the dead meticulously observed, so that his rest in the underworld amongst the heroes is assured. But Polynices, who died in agony just as certainly as his brother did, is not to be buried at all. The decree makes that quite plain. He is to be left, lying where he fell, with no tears or ceremonies of mourning, to stink in the open, till the kites and vultures catch the scent and tear him to pieces and pick him to the bone. Left unburied, there is no rest for him in the underworld, no more than here.
Yeah, they believed that after life they would go to the underworld, which is kind of like hell. And so Anticles was given a full burial and so has a safe place in the underworld. He's going to be protected after his life. Polynices, however, was the one who was attacking Thebes, and he is getting no burial at all. Against the will of the gods, I should say, but following the rule of the new king, Creon. So that's what they're upset about here.
What a great king our Creon is, eh, sister? It's against us, you realize, and against me in particular, that he has published this decree. It will soon be here himself to make it public to the senators and anyone who may not have heard it. He isn't bluffing. He means to act, to make it stick. The punishment for anyone who disobeys the order is public stoning to death.
Yeah.
So that's the news. And you know it now. The time has come for you two to stand up and be counted with me, to show whether you are worthy of the honor of being Oedipus' daughter.
Wait a minute, Antigone. Don't be so headstrong. If all this is as you say it is, what can I do, one way or the other?
Just say you'll help me. Commit yourself.
To do what? Something dangerous.
Just to give me a hand to lift the body. It's too heavy for me to move on my own.
To bury him, you mean, in spite of the decree?
He's my brother. And whatever you say, he's yours too. I won't betray him now that he's dead. No one will ever throw that in my face.
You can't do it. Creon has publicly forbidden it.
Cannot forbid me to love my brother. He has neither the right nor the power to do that.
Have you forgotten what happened to our father? Contempt and loathing from everyone, even from himself, that was his reward. And blinded too by his own hand. And his mother, wife, as ill-matched with him as those two words are with each other. She knotted a rope and hanged herself. And now our two brothers, both in one day, caught in the same trap, claiming blood for blood and death for death, each one at the expense of the other. We are the last ones left, sister. And what a death is promised for us, more terrible than any if we break the law by defying the king and the power of his...
Grammarly does more than catch errors.
No one's paying me to say this, but Grammarly is really useful. I encourage you to use it.
With Grammarly, you can find really good, no, perfect words that make your...
State. Think for a moment, Antigone, please. We're women, that's all. Physically weaker and barred from any political influence. How can we fight against the institutionalized strength of the male sex?
Of course, remember, this is written by a man, but it shows strong women, which is nice to see.
They are in power and we have to obey them, or worse tyrannies than these may be inflicted upon us. May God forgive me, and the spirits of the dead. We have no choice. State power commands, and we must do as we are told. When you are powerless, wild gestures and heroic refusals are reserved for madmen.
Don't say anything. I won't ask again. In fact, if you were to offer help now, I would refuse it. Easy, please. I intend to bury my brother. If I die in the attempt, I shall die in the knowledge that I have acted justly, and that will be a kind of happiness. I shall lie peacefully beside my brother, whom I loved in my actions as well as in word. Our lives are short. We have too little time to waste it on men and the laws they make. The approval of the dead is everlasting. And I shall bask in it as I lie among them. Listen, please. Live by all means. The laws you will break are not of man's making.
I reverence them. But how can I defy the unlimited power of the state? What weapons of mine are strong enough for that?
Fine. That's a good excuse. I'll go and shovel the earth on my brother's body.
I'm frightened, Antigone. I'm frightened for you.
Don't be frightened for me. Fear for yourself.
For God's sake, keep it quiet. Don't tell anyone. I'll keep our meeting secret.
Don't you dare. You must tell everyone. Shout it in the streets. If you keep it quiet, I shall begin to hate you.
Fire burning in you, Antigone, but it makes me go cold just to hear you.
Well, I'm not doing it to please you.
You won't do it at all. You're bound to fail.
I shall fail when I have failed and not before.
But you know it's hopeless. Why begin when you know there's no way you can succeed?
Be quiet! Before I begin to despise you for talking so feebly. He will despise you too. Unjustly. And go now. Go! If I'm mad, you can leave me here with my madness, which will doubtless destroy me soon enough. Death is the worst thing that can happen. And some deaths are more honorable than others.
If you've made your mind up, Antigone, it's madness. Remember, I love you. Whatever happens.
Your work can feel much smoother with Monday.com WorkOS.
I don't
This
think so.
smooth.
He who makes his naked pride and the empty boast of looking back. He heard their singing as if the victory of theirs for the taking.
And he brought down his thunder on their glittering hosts.
Struck them with lightning and sent them flying. Scorched them and burned them and left them dying.
I've got to remind you that YouTube's automatic captions are not always very accurate. For example, they're not talking about burgers here. But this is the Greek chorus. The way this director has done it is to sometimes have all of the members of the Greek chorus speak all together at once. Sometimes for people to deliver individual parts of a line, one by one. Sometimes it's pairs or threes, but this is just the director's own decision.
On like a rock from the mountain crest he came, thundering to earth, the flame dashed from his hand. The son of Thebes, whose best hope of fame was to conquer his native land, and who failed in his quest. For the war god gave us his word of command. Like a battle chariot, his terrible name ran them down where they stood, and they died in the dust.
Now at each of our 7 gates a Theban defender waits, as 7 champions bring their fame and armor to the fight.
And
before the coming of night. 6 have put their fame to the test. 6 have laid both fame and armor to rest as a tribute at great Zeus' feet.
The 7th gate, 2 brothers meet, sharing their blood in death as in birth.
Each struggling together. Each laying the other dead on the earth. There will be victory celebrations today in this city of charioteers, and singing in the streets. There will be ceremonies of thanksgiving and grateful tears for the end of fighting, as the enemy retreats, and the time comes for relaxation and play.
Now, as all voices are raised and the drum beats, the ecstatic God himself will appear.
Barabbas, the drummer!
To take power for one day in this city he calls his own. Time to dance all night, to shake the foundations.
Till the faint light of dawn flushes the window, and the lamps fade.
Guess who?
He made the most of his fortune, and the god's choice, the son of Antigone. As the people rejoice, the new king enters to take his throne. The responsibility is alone.
This is King Creon.
But why has he called us here? To debate an emergency session is an ill proclamation, so vital to the state.
When I was a kid learning this play, my teacher pronounced the king's name as Creon instead of Crayon, but this production uses crayon, so that's what I'm using.
Senators, our country, like a ship at sea, has survived the hurricane. The gods who sent it have navigated us into calmer waters now. I have chosen to summon this assembly because I know I can trust you. Your predecessors were loyal and reliable in King Laius' time. And when King Oedipus, in his exceptional wisdom, restored the fortunes of this city. When tragedy struck him and his rule was ended, your loyalty to the blood royal was never questioned. And you supported his sons till they too were brought down in a single day, incestuously murdered, each brother shedding a brother's blood. By that same blood right, as next of kin, I claim the throne as my inheritance, both the city and the kingdom. I claim it, and I hold it from today as mine by right. There is no certain measure of a man's quality, the depth of his intellect, or the maturity of his judgment, until he is put to the supreme test by the exercise of absolute power in the state. My own opinion is well known. The ruler who fears the consequences of his actions, or who is afraid to act openly, or take the good advice of his senators, is beneath contempt. Equally contemptible is the man who puts the interests of his friends or his relations before his country. There is nothing good can be said of him. Let me make it plain before the gods, whose eyes are in every council chamber. When I see any threat to this nation, from whatever direction, I shall make it public. No one who is an enemy of the state shall ever be any friend of mine. The state, the fatherland, is everything to us. The ship we all sail in. If she sinks, we all drown, and friendship drowns with us. That's my policy. A policy of service to the commonwealth. And in pursuance of that policy, duties, who died fighting for his country and with exceptional bravery. We shall bury him with all the honors and funeral ceremonies customary for a man who died a hero. The other, the outcast, the exile, his brother Polynices, who returned here at the head of a foreign army to destroy his homeland, burn down this city and reduce the people to a condition of slavery or kill them in the streets. I have ordered that he is to have no grave at all. No one is to bury him or mourn for him. His body is to be left in the open, uncovered, a stinking feast for the scavengers, dogs and crows, a sight to inspire terror. I intend to make it quite plain that never, under my administration, will people who commit crimes against the state reap any benefits from their action. And at the expense of honest, decent citizens, too. The people who serve the state, alive or dead, that makes no difference. I shall honor them and reward them too.
Son of Menocius, you are king now. You have delivered your verdict and sentence upon the man who defends the city and the man who attacked it. Your least word has the force of law and defines the dead as well as the living. We are all at your disposal.
Make sure then that my orders are carried out.
Younger men than us implement your policy.
That don't mean that. Polynices' body is already under guard.
What else must we do? What other responsibility do you lay upon us?
Not to intrigue with dissidents or subversive elements.
We are not mad. We know the law and the penalty for breaking it.
Which will be death. And be in no doubt I shall enforce it. Because there are always men who can be bought, who will risk anything, even death, if the bribe is large enough.
My old trail! I can hardly speak for lack of breath. Not because I ran. I kept on stopping, as a matter of fact, half a dozen times, and I had about as much as I dared. I haven't thought about anything so much for a long time. Listen, don't hurry, I said to myself. Chances are, Dimwit, you're hurrying to the firing squad. But then I said to myself, you see, hang about, I said, or rather don't, because if Creon hears this from somebody else, you're really in trouble. So I hurried here as slow as I could, if you see what I mean. It's funny how long a mile can take you when you're thinking what I was thinking. However, duty called in the end, and I reckoned it would be safer to face it out. It may be unimportant, but I've come here, so now I'll tell you. I'm punished for it, there's got to be behind it, that's for sure. So I wouldn't have escaped it anyway.
Sense, man, why are you frightened?
Well, first of all, sir, for myself, like, my own point of view, I've never done it, and I didn't see who else done it neither, so I shouldn't be punished for it, should I?
Any need for all this preamble? Take great care to dissociate yourself from what you say. It must be bad news.
It is bad news, sir, I'm afraid. I don't know how to put it for the best.
The plainest way, and then we can have done with you.
Straight out with it then. The body's buried. Well, someone or other, a handful of dust, that's all, dry dust. But probably sprinkled, you know, religiously, and then gone, whoever it was.
Who has dared to disobey my orders?
No way, knowing so, we've no idea. There'd been no digging, no spade marks on it.
Honestly, this is a good place to stop, so I'm just going to...
Is the equivalent
Oh,
of
come on.
mathematics.
Regarded as the
Okay, so let me get the link. Right. Okay. So don't forget, next week, your individual sonnets will be due. Once again, please double spaced with the same information included on your previous sonnets. Please remember to include the name of our class, which is LIT2, so I don't get them mixed up with my other class. A lot of people skip that information. Also include the date. Yeah. All right. I hope you're enjoying this so far, and see you next week. Thank you very much. Many of you I'll see in my other classes for the rest of the week. Oh, sure. Got it. Fine. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very much. See you next week. Luke, bye.